Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today no introduction necessary, Mr. Alex Krainer is back with us. Welcome back, Alex.
Thank you for having me, Anya. Good to be with you, and hello to all your viewers and listeners.
I know there are some already waiting, and to everyone who follows Alex, you already know where to find him, but those of you who don't, just scroll down below our live stream, you find Alex Substack as well as X, previously known as Twitter, and his website as well to follow his work. If you choose to support my work, you have all the links down below. I really appreciate if at the end of our live stream you enjoy the conversation and the wisdom that I'm sure my guest will provide. Hit the like button, subscribe, and leave the comments down below. And if you have questions and we have enough time, maybe we can take the questions from the super chat. So Alex, so much is happening, OMG again. I wanted to start with a question about Trump, but I think I will save this question as my last question. And we will start with something that I think everyone is expecting us to start. And I think it is one of the most important breakthroughs at this point. So I want to address the Trump-Putin phone call. And I just want to say to my audience, if I come across sometimes as I am having more chat than an interview type of format with my guest, that means that I feel comfortable enough to carry an open, free-flowing conversation, which I think is very healthy for everyone. So Alex, I think that there were many phone calls between Trump and Putin prior to this official one that has been announced yesterday. It's very interesting because at the same day when Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense of US, was delivering his speech and saying that there will be no US troops in Ukraine, that Ukraine does not belong in NATO, and that those borders prior to 2014, if I'm not mistaken, we will not go back to that time, and we will not have Minsk 3.0 again agreements. At the same time, when Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, was threatening Russia that if Russia ever dares to attack one of the members of NATO, they will crush it, meaning NATO will crush it. The very same day, at the end of that, the official announcement of that call between Trump and Putin took place. So I want to ask you your thoughts on this, about the timing of it. Why do you think they announced it right then? Was it because of what Pete Hegseth already stated, the US position regarding Ukraine? And was it the official message to the world, because Putin already knew it, as I assume, prior to that? Was it official message to the world? The world, now you hear it. Putin already heard it probably like 100 times. You hear it now, okay? So we now talk peace. But those are just my thoughts, and I would like to ask you about the timing of this official announcement of the Putin-Trump call.
I think with these things, timing is very important, and messaging is very important. I think you're absolutely right to point that out. And we only had not only Pete Hegseth speak to representatives at NATO, we also had J.D. Vance speaking to the representative of the European Union. And they delivered a pretty much an unequivocal message that the United States is done with this war. And I think that Trump pretty much gave rock solid guarantees to Ukraine that he will do absolutely nothing for them at this point. And so the European Union is left on its own. They turned over the baton to Great Britain, the biggest of the warmongers, even including United States. And the United Kingdom is obliging. They have made it clear that they are with Ukraine forever and ever, and that they will be all tough and decisive and united. And we've heard all these stories before. Remember 3 years ago, they were all united, our unity and determination and shared values and this and that. Well, there's not much left of that. But I do suspect that there have been extensive communications between, if not Trump and Putin personally, their representatives 100%. And I think that there have been back-channel communications amongst them even before Donald Trump was elected. Another significant event that preceded this announcement was Russia releasing one of the U.S. Embassy personnel, Mark Fogel, who was arrested there for possession of drugs. It wasn't anything bad, anything nasty, but it was in violation of U.S. laws, so he got a prison sentence. And so the Russians released him, and then Trump's own personal envoy, otherwise for the Middle East, flew his private jet to Russia to pick up Mark Fogel, which I thought was interesting because I'm sure that there's many ways for Mark Fogel to return to the United States. Not a household name, not somebody that anybody was talking about previously. But I think it gave Trump a cover, an excuse to send his own man of confidence to Moscow. And you can exchange communications that are not susceptible to being intercepted, to being spied on, to being compromised. And my understanding is that Steve Witkoff, Trump's envoy, spent 3.5 hours negotiating with the Russians. I don't know what they were negotiating, but for sure they were talking and exchanging notes and preparing the groundwork for future discussions. And I think that another interesting aspect is that in his statement about the conversation with Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump also named the people who will be on the delegation to continue these talks with the Russians. And guess who was not on the list? Keith Kellogg, right? And how many weeks has it been that everybody has been going out of their heads about Keith Kellogg's plan, about how it's an unworkable plan, that Trump is not serious, the Russians will never accept this, they already rejected it. And the weird thing is that, of course, if Trump personally doesn't understand this, I'm sure he has very smart, well-informed advisors around him who could have told him this, and they probably did. And so he probably knew this all along. But, Trump plays his cards very close to his chest. He throws a stun grenade on that side. His people work on the other side. And then, when the time comes, an announcement is made, that stun grenade burns itself out. Nobody cares anymore. And so the train rolls. And I would have thought that people learned this from his first administration. And so I don't really tend to get so very excited about when Trump makes something that sounds completely mad and even repugnant, like the Gaza Riviera project, because I assume that it's yet another stun grenade, and that we'll learn about what the subsequent chess moves will be in due course. Trump did say that with Vladimir Putin, they discussed the Middle East as well. And it seems that they both went away from that call very, in very good spirit, very optimistic, announcing friendly, constructive cooperation with one another. And it's very, very difficult to underestimate the importance of this. In a long time ago, in 2018, the former German foreign minister, Sigmar Gabriel, he gave an interview with the Bild magazine. And he said that the relationship between Russia and the United States is the most important relationship for the peace of the world. And so, now many people are commenting, well, what's the use? Why would the Russians ever trust the Americans? The Americans are not agreement capable, and all these things. Okay, fair enough. That all is true. But isn't having any kind of relations better than having no relations? I think so, because, the 3 years of Joe Biden's administration and no relations, 4 years of administration, but 3 years of no relations between the United States put us on the precipice of a nuclear Armageddon. And once there are relations, then there are the risk of things getting out of control and the world escalating into a nuclear war are reduced very dramatically. And then if the relations are friendly and cordial and constructive, then all kinds of solutions become possible, and the potential for cooperation between the United States and Russia are absolutely enormous. It's something that existed in the world throughout most of the 19th century and even before that, when the United States and Russia used to be very close friends and allies. And then that was all kind of sabotaged by the agents of the British Empire. But maybe there's hope now that those developments may have been only paused in the post-World War II period until now, and that now they will build on what used to be there, because Russia and the United States actually are logical and natural allies.
Thank you, Alex, so much for this. I've noticed a lot of tension and a lot of criticism about Trump lately. And I will address this if we have enough time before the end of this live stream. But I just want to share again my thoughts on this. I think you agree with me that when Russian officials make some statements, those are rather true statements. They don't waste their words. And when they say something, they mean it.
Yeah.
They stand by their word. That's how I look at the Russian politics now. Maybe I am naive, as people like to call me. I'm naive, but trust me, I have my own intuition, and I also understand things that maybe sometimes I cannot verbalize in my broken English. But what I will say is this. I don't think if there would be Harris, Kamala in the position of being a president of the United States, we would have those kind of talks as we are having right now. And people are so easy, so quick to criticize, to throw the shade, to be negative, and not appreciate this huge breakthrough, because this is just 3 weeks. Let's wake up, everyone. Wake up and smell the coffee, they say. This is just 3 weeks since Trump was sworn as the president, okay? And everyone is already major disappointed, major complaining. But I think Russians have something to say. And I want to play this because everyone respects, so do I, very much, Mr. Sergei Lavrov. So let's play the clip with his own words, and maybe then it will shine some light on Trump, a little bit at least. So just give me a moment, I share the video.
Yesterday, after the phone call between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, are you more hopeful now that there can be real and fundamental change and improvement in U.S.-Russian relations?
What struck me was that now the entire world is in a state of shock, viewing the phone conversation and the news about it as something extraordinary. This shows to what extent the staff of the Biden administration, led by their president and their European satellites, have abandoned dialogue and diplomacy as a method of communication with the outside world, opting instead for threats, sanctions, and the arming of the regime in Kiev to wage war against the Russian Federation. Judging by the surprise and shock caused by the phone talks between Trump and Putin, it seems that everything happening in Ukraine and the actions of Zelensky's Nazi regime have been taken for granted. This is how you should communicate with Russia. Perhaps that is why many in the West, including the leaders of the European Union, were shocked when a simple, normal conversation took place between two polite, educated individuals.
Perfect.
Okay, so we have this clear, right, Alex? We have this clear, everyone. If anyone comes after me, like attacking now, because I support this, Sergei Lavrov said, two individuals, well-educated, good mothers, we are good. Alex, my question here, can I ask you? If he says this, and he means it, which he does, and he puts Trump and Putin on this level, do you think, is there any European Union leader at this point that will behave like an adult?
Well, I think some will. Robert Fico, Viktor Orban, Croatia's President Milanovic. There's going to be a handful of them. For the rest, I think there's going to be a whole lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth. Is the biblical term. I think that Lavrov's statement is exactly perfect. It's a shocking thing because it stands in such sharp contrast with the way that the Biden administration has been handling the international relations. No diplomacy whatsoever. All coercion, threats, browbeating. It's been really, really ugly. And we are only now realizing just how ugly it has been. Russia and Ukraine never went to war during Donald Trump's presidency, the first term. They went to war during Biden's presidency, and the escalation for that war started almost the day that Joe Biden walked into the White House. Not to exaggerate, it was on day 12 of his presidency that he called up Volodymyr Zelensky. Well, that was the first official call to Volodymyr Zelensky. The very next day, Zelensky outlawed the main opposition party, which was by this time the favorite for winning the next election, the most popular party in Ukraine. He outlawed them, and he took off the air 3 of the most popular television stations, which were allied with the opposition parties. And in the Biden administrations, they were delighted about it. They were joking that this was Zelensky's gift to Biden on his inauguration. There was an inauguration gift from Zelensky to Biden. And then I think about 2 weeks later, Zelensky went as far as actually arresting Viktor Medvedchuk, who was the leader of the banning his party wasn't good enough. So they actually went and arrested him. And then they also confiscated all of his properties. He was one of Ukraine's oligarch, so he was very well. He was a billionaire. Well, they took it all from him. And Biden administration didn't have the smallest problem with him. This was, as far as they were concerned, this was freedom and democracy in action. And then from there on, it was only escalation. It was escalating to the point of war. The Russians have done everything they could to avoid the war. But the Biden administration didn't want them to. They didn't want to avoid the war. In fact, the Biden administration tried their hardest to convince the Russians that they were preparing a first strike nuclear attack on Russia. That's a fact. And so, the Russians couldn't tolerate this, because it would actually, what would happen is that the Biden administration, either they were actually going to do it, or they wanted the Russians to believe that they were planning to do it. They were going to set up nuclear missile site facilities in Ukraine, and close to Kharkov, and what's the place of the nuclear power plant incident?
I forgot. Where's the nuclear plants, right?
Yeah, in the 1980s, the nuclear power plant blew up.
Chernobyl. Mm-hmm.
So from those two locations, missiles would reach Russia, I think, within about 5 minutes. And this is not enough time for Russia to mount a retaliatory attack, which means that it would deprive Russia of their nuclear deterrent. And that, pretty much amounts to a strategic defeat of Russia. And Joe Biden and Antony Blinken, in direct discussions with Putin and Lavrov, told them, no, we reserve the rights to build those facilities on Ukrainian territory. And then the Russians said, well, and then I think just less than a week before the war actually started, they had the Munich Security Conference, where Vladimir Zelensky ran his mouth, and he said that they were working on acquiring nuclear weapons. And so, the Russians had no choice, either, prevent this from happening or face a strategic defeat. And, Russia has been at the receiving end of aggression and invasions from the West for more than 200 years, and they have no reason to take this lightly, or to stay put and then hope, well, maybe they won't attack us after all, maybe they'll be nice. They had to assure their security by themselves. And they warned the West. They said, if our security concerns are not taken into account, if we cannot have an agreement along the lines of the draft treaties that they sent to the Americans and to NATO in December of 2021, then we will have to implement our own military technical measures. So they said, that's what's going to happen. And even at the last moment, Blinken and Biden were saying, no, we reserve the rights to put missile installations in Ukraine, and that has nothing to do with you. You have no say in this. And so they basically dared them to attack. And then in February 2022, the armed force of Ukraine started to mass troops towards the Donbas, and then they increased the shelling of towns and cities in Donbas 30-fold, according to OECD data. So, to say that this was an unprovoked aggression is completely false, and none of this would have happened if Donald Trump was in the White House. This was all Biden administration and whoever was running the show there, Victoria Nuland, Jake Sullivan, Anthony Blinken, and all of these other ghouls, probably in coordination with Barack Obama himself.
Yes, so true. And then there was one more aspect. Besides that, on the surface, there was the bio weapon. And as they were about to target certain ethnic groups in
Yes.
Russia. And that is all connected with those lists that we are soon going to see, because this will all make sense. It's not just about the parties. Like I said yesterday in my live stream with Larry Johnson, it's not just about having sex with underage girls, young women, some of them, but it's about what was taking place in those laboratories as well. I think it's all connected. So Alex, on that note, I was also thinking, I came across this information, I don't know if this is accurate, I assume it is, that Pentagon has failed in the last 7 audits. So if Doge exposes the corruption in Pentagon, can it help to bring NATO to the end? And maybe this is the timing of all of this, don't you think?
I do think so, and I think that NATO has already come to the end. I think that, what's left? The United States is effectively out. So they didn't step out officially, but Trump said, you need to pay up 5% of your GDP, an impossible number I think for most European governments, if not all of them. This is an impossible number. Nobody's going to pay up 5% of the GDP. 2% was painful in his first term. 5% is impossible. For Germany, for example, that would mean setting aside half of the government's budget to pay for NATO. So it's a no-go. And this is, setting an impossible condition to say, like, right, you're not going to do that, I'm not going to help you out. So if anybody goes and invokes the fifth Article 5 of the NATO treaty, we're just going to say, you didn't pay up, you're on your own. So that pretty much is NATO cut at its core. It defeats the purpose of the alliance. And then also, let's not forget that the second most powerful military in NATO is Turkey. Turkey and the United States are barely on talking terms. They're not allies, really, members of a formal alliance, but the two nations between themselves are not allies. And now they really fell out over Syria, because whatever's happening there, Turkey is in control, the United States is not in control. The Americans wanted elections in Damascus. HTS said, no elections, we've taken over. HTS is under Turks' control. If the Turks leaned on the HTS to run elections, they probably would have to, but the Turks are not. So, two of the most powerful players in NATO are out. The rest don't stand a chance against Russia at all, even if you put them all together. And so what are they going to do? It's best they disband. Now, of course, there's a certain bureaucratic inertia where, they might want to go on pretending, under British leadership of all people, that there's this great, unity, determination, that nothing changed, they're going to build up their own forces, and, too bad for the United States, and on and on and on. But there's not much substance. It's a lot of hot air. It's, like as the cowboys would say, it's all hat, no cattle. And I think that ultimately, as Soviet Union fell apart, there was a long period where it was in disarray, but this bureaucratic inertia still kind of glued the people in these roof organizations, where they went through the motions as though they were relevant, as though it mattered, until one day it was too obvious, and then they said, like, okay, Soviet Union is no more. And then from that day on, they really all had to disband and find different jobs.
Okay, so now I want to play a short clip from PBD podcast, and then I will ask you my question that will be maybe a little bit different, but I think it's important. This is about money now, everyone. So let's play this for a moment. It will be about the Federal Reserve Bank and other central banks. And I want to ask you about it, Alex. So just let me mute myself and we play the video.
I want you to watch this clip. This is from 08-09, okay? 09. Ben Bernanke is being asked about where a $500 billion of money went to. This was shared to me by Brandon. Play this clip here and watch the way he answers, and just watch his body language and tell me if you believe him.
What's
Go
his
ahead,
job
Rob.
title? But Pat, what was he
the
back
chairman
then?
of the Fed.
The Fed. He was the head of the Fed.
No, this guy was like the previous
Alan
Jerome Powell.
Greenspan.
Well,
Right?
the younger people. Well, the younger people don't know because they don't know.
Play this clip. Go for
Who
it.
got the money? To financial institutions in Europe and other countries?
Which ones?
I don't know.
$500 billion.
$500 billion, and you don't know who got the money?
The loan went to the loans go to the central banks, and they then put them out to their institutions to try to bring down short-term interest rates in dollar markets around the world.
Well, let's start with which central banks got the money.
There are 14 of them, which are listed I'm sure they're listed in here somewhere.
All right. So
Okay.
who actually made that decision to hand out $1 trillion that way? $500 billion. Who made that decision?
The Federal Open Market Committee,
Okay. And was it done at one time or in a series of
a
meetings?
series of meetings.
And under what legal authority?
We have a longstanding legal authority to do swaps with other central banks.
Do you
It's
happen
not,
to
it's
know
not an emergency. It's not an emergency authority of any kind.
anything specific about it?
Yes, his lawyer.
Do you know the
Anybody?
My counsel says Section 14 of the Federal Reserve Act.
Okay, so here's my question, Alex. I just want to remind everyone I'm not an economist or financial expert. I'm just one of many of you who are watching those videos and want to understand things. So, as I believe, the Federal Reserve System was created in 1913, correct? It has
Yes.
nothing to do with federal. It's mostly private, and it's based on printing money, pretty much. And now the question is this, Alex. I was thinking, what if we will just use our imagination for a moment, and what if US or Trump implements a new monetary system based on a maybe new blockchain technology, and with that can bring that to an end? Completely new financial system. Is it possible?
It is possible. This financial system that we have today came out of somewhere, and nothing lasts forever. So it's not for eternity. It's unsustainable. It can only be sustained through permanent wars, permanent repression, increasing authoritativeness of government, treating people like they're termites in a termite colony. And this is why we've heard so much talk about CBDCs, because they know that the currencies that we have in circulation today, the dollar, the euro, the yen, British pound and so on, they know that they're going to collapse and be worthless, that inflation is coming our way, and not any kind of inflation, but probably fairly high rates of inflation. And so at some point they're going to have to replace those currencies with new currencies, wipe the slate clean somehow. Usually they like to precipitate a large war, because the war creates such an emergency in a society that people no longer ask questions. Those who do are dealt with very quickly, and without the need for all the legal niceties. If your pension has disappeared, you can blame the Russians, and if you can't get to your doctor or whatever social services you feel like you're entitled to under the social contract, well, they say it's a shared sacrifice. We're at war, and then once the war is over, then the slate's wiped clean, and they say, oh, guess what, we have this new currency for you, and it's going to be great, and you don't have any money, but we'll lend you some, and you're going to be our debt slaves and tax donkeys again. And so the whole cycle starts all over again. When I wrote my book in 2017 called The Grand Deception, the one which was promptly banned, I wrote why I believe that the relationship between Russia and the United States was extremely important, and the reason why I thought so. And I'm going to publish this, I think, today, and if not today, then tomorrow. I'm going to publish this in my Substack. The main reason for that is exactly to confront the bankers. Like 150 years ago, Lord Acton said that the issue which has swept down the centuries and which will have to be fought sooner or later is people versus the banks. And the problem is that this global banking cartel has established a franchise of central banks, Bank of England, Federal Reserve, and pretty much all the other, Bank of Japan, Swiss National Bank, pretty much all the other central banks are in this kind of franchise organization. And even if you, I don't know, let's say you're Xi Jinping or you're Vladimir Putin, even if you take them head on and let's say you throw them out of your country, you disenfranchise them and you ban them out of your country and you close off your country to the Western banking institutions, you only cause them a setback, because they're still there in London, in New York, in Paris, Stockholm, not Berlin, Frankfurt, and so forth. And there will be a time when Vladimir Putin is no longer, when maybe some other Boris Yeltsin is going to be in the Kremlin, or some other, weak or let's say a less knowledgeable leader, or somebody who's susceptible to blackmail and bribery, somebody who likes young girls or young boys, whatever. And then these bankers start to burrow their way back in. And little by little, they again reverse the country's independence and take over and turn the country into their colony. And so there's this mystery about why Vladimir Putin has always been very keen on having friendly relations with Russia, even during the worst of time. I think that the Biden administration's 4 years were the only exceptions when he didn't talk of the Americans as our American partners or even our American friends. And many people in the Russian government used to say, there's only one man here who thinks that keeping good relations with the United States is worthwhile, and that's Vladimir Putin. And all the rest of us just follow because it's him. Otherwise, nobody believes in it. And I think that the reason is because it will take an alliance, a partnership of the United States and Russia to finally dislodge this banking cabal from which has clawed its way into the body of humanity for centuries, to finally dislodge them and rout them out. And I think that will also necessitate a new and different monetary system. Now, what kind of a monetary system this might be, I don't know, but I think that probably there will be money based on blockchain technology. Likely there might be different kinds of money, because during I think perhaps most of human history, people have used multiple currencies. There would be, for example, throughout the Middle Ages in Europe, people used dual currency. One was the sovereign currency, the currency of the king, in which you paid your tax to the king. But then they also had local and regional currencies that facilitated the local economy, the local exchange, that people can, buy the bread and pay the baker and that kind of thing. So I think it's not, it's conceivable that we will have a very different arrangement. I don't know how soon, but it could include multiple currency. I don't know. Maybe you have some kind of a gold back money, or money based on a basket of commodities, not just gold. Maybe in addition, you have some kind of a crypto currency that you can use in international trade. I don't know, like when you make an order from Alibaba, maybe you use a different currencies. But, I know that people in Russia and in China have been working on this for many years, and they've been studying the problem matter in order to come up with some kind of a currency that would facilitate economic development and trade, and perhaps that wouldn't incentivize this oligarchic empire building and colonialism, and this propensity to war, which we have had in the Western civilization for 5 centuries or so. Well, depending on how you look at it, maybe you could say 2,500 years. There's really something about money that is incentivizing this very aggressive behavior. We see war in the Middle East and war in Ukraine, and somehow the West is always involved. We're not told how exactly, but somehow. And then, there was Iraq and Afghanistan and Somalia and Sudan, and it's just Korea and Vietnam, and it's just one thing after the other. And it's always the Western powers that are main protagonists of this war, but it's never explained why or how. But the system of incentives that ultimately leads to this behavior has been with us for centuries. And as a result, rather than having friendly, constructive relationships with the civilization of the Maya, with the civilization of the Incas and Aztecas, with the civilization of India and Japan and China, we destroyed them. And we depopulated whole swathes of the earth, destroyed many tribes, completely depopulated them, many kingdoms, many minor civilizations. And it's not because we in the West individually are all evil and destructive and aggressive. It's because we have adopted, or at least we have been ambushed with this monetary system that incentivizes the worst behavior. outright piracy. And so this has to end. And I think that now we have the opportunity to end it, and we should.
For explaining this, I think in our lifetime we actually are going to see it. It might sound crazy, but I think we will.
No, I think it doesn't. It doesn't sound crazy at all, Anya. I think you're right.
And so if that was not crazy, now I will say something maybe really crazy to some people. I think, but hey, you know what? I'm coming to the point, and Alex knows I'm coming to the point when I'm just me, I want to express me. And I think both President Putin and Trump are fighting with the same evil. End of story. This is my opinion. The same evil forces that are represented in a different way, but it's really the same demonic evil energy. And I want to ask you now, I have 2 more questions, if we have time, of course. Do we have enough time? I think we have 10 more minutes, right, Alex?
Are you asking me? I have time, yes.
You. Oh, thank you. Okay, so I want to go to Elon Musk now. And I will be playing a little bit, excuse me, a longer clip from, I think it's from today. He was streaming live in Dubai. And I want to show the audience what he said. But then I want to ask you, because when he was at the Oval Office next to Trump with his little boy, can I just say, so here is my question completely off the script. I want to know your thoughts since you're the father. And I know that usually children repeat, especially this age, as this little one is X, they repeat what they hear at home, probably frequently. So here he was all over the place. It surprises me that actually Musk brings him everywhere, but he does. So he took him there, and this little boy is saying to Trump, "You are not the president." And then he's saying to him, "Shut your mouth." And then he's cleaning his nose on the presidential desk. So I was thinking, okay, that cleaning nose is a child, like he's a child. But those words, I was thinking, why this little boy is, and I watched several times different clips, because at first when I watched this live, I was like, what is he saying? I couldn't believe this. But he looked at Trump, and Trump actually said this little X has like very high IQ. And then he says, "You're not the president." And then, Elon was talking, and then he says, "Shut your mouth," to Trump. I couldn't believe this. Have you seen it? Did you hear it?
Oh, the boy said, "Shut your mouth," to Donald Trump.
Yeah, Elon Musk's son.
Yeah, that's not very nice.
I don't have the clips with me, but I'm sure, you will find it, and the audience can find it. Was the strangest. I'm thinking, what are they talking? Like, how does he know? Like, why he's saying those things, this little one? But besides the boy, that's why maybe this is my intro. That's why I'm not playing the original clip from the Oval Office, because the little X was all over the place with his statements. I've chosen this video from today, so we will just focus on what Musk is saying. It's a little longer, but I will ask you before I will play this video my question. I want to know, Alex, if what he is saying, especially at the end of this, is accurate, and this is in regards to inflation and the interests on payments, mortgages, credits, etc. So let me play this, and then I give you space to answer. One moment.
Issue, meaning it's something that appeals to voters from, of all types. And I think improving government efficiency, I think, was like almost 70% support, so quite a lot, basically, more than any other issue. So I think the people are very supportive. Obviously, there's certain elements of the bureaucracy that are not supportive, because we are moving them from the government sector to the private sector. So really, at a high level, this is kind of like we're really just removing people from low to sometimes negative productivity roles in the government sector to higher productivity roles in the private sector. The net effect of that will be an increase in the services, which increases standard of living and well-being of the average American.
And you usually have one key target that you aim to achieve in every single endeavor that you have. So SpaceX is make humanity a multiplanetary species. With Tesla, it's ushering an era of sustainable travel. What is the one main goal for government efficiency that you have for yourself? Is it saving money? Is it doing something else? What is the one main task that you have for yourself?
Clothing brand owners and boutique owners.
To the people, I think, is going to lead to clearing out an accumulation of laws and regulation. In the absence of that, every year you get more laws and regulations until eventually everything is illegal and nothing is permitted. And that's sort of the situation we have these days. So, the aspiration here is a reduction in regulation and reduction in government spending, such that the economy is able to grow faster. Maybe the economy can grow at 4 or 5% potentially, in terms of real useful goods and services output, and then government spending can be reduced by about 3 or 4% of the economy, about maybe $1 trillion or more. And the net effect of that would be no inflation from 2025 to 2026. So that would be quite remarkable. And also, if the U.S. government is buying less debt, which I think will be the case, if the deficit drops from 2 trillion to 1 trillion, then there'll be 1 trillion less debt that the government needs to buy, which will drop, of course, interest rates to drop significantly. And that means people's mortgage payments, car payments, credit card payments, student loans, whatever debt they have, their debt payments will be less.
First and foremost, apologies for the commercials. I don't have the YouTube Premium, so I have to find a way. So Alex, tell me, is this the way how it is? Is this true what he's saying about inflation and reducing when they will go through this now with DOGE and they will see the overspending of the government and they will cut that spending? That's what I understand from what he's saying. It will lower the payments and it will help the economy. And he was talking about there will be no inflation. Is it possible?
It is. Well, if the question is that there will be no inflation, that's certainly possible. But with the money system that we have, if you cut government spending, if you reduce government deficit, you risk to plunge the economy into a depression or a recession. And this is a bit complicated, but I'll try to explain it. I think I'll have to publish it on Substack to at least make it digestible. But let me give it a try. So basically, the money that we have today only goes into circulation as debt. And so the only way any dollar, euro, yen, pound go into circulation is because somebody went to the bank, raised credit, the bank credited their bank account, and now they have money to spend. And now this money is in circulation. They spent it on something, their suppliers earned that money, so now they can spend it and so forth. The problem is that this money has to be repaid with interest. But the interest part of that loan is never created. It's never put into circulation. So the only way for anyone to pay back their debt is by a lot of other people and company and governments going into debt in order to put more money into circulation so that you could earn it from them and you can repay your debts with interest. Take a typical mortgage. like a 30-year mortgage at, I don't know, 5%, 6%, you're pretty much going to have to pay it twice. So if you borrowed $500,000, you will repay a whole million. But only $500,000 was put into circulation. The other half never goes into circulation. Now, there's two problems here. That is, there are two very significant drains on the monetary mass. And the first one is savings. So, if you study economic theory, these assumptions are always that people spend all the money as soon as they earn it, practically. But people don't spend all the money. People always retain, and you have those figures in various economic statistics. People will spend between 5 and 10, 12% of their income for a rainy day. So it goes into savings. It doesn't circulate. And so what that does is it reduces the aggregate purchasing power in the system. Now, what does that mean? That means that, okay, if you take an economic system, okay, before I get to that, the other big drain on the monetary mass is debt repayments, because every time you repay a debt, you extinguish the money. That money, which was in circulation, no longer is, it disappears. So you have two large drains of money from the monetary mass. Okay, so this is a big problem, because let's say you take an economic system as a whole, and let's pretend that it's a closed system. There's no imports, there's no exports. It's just a closed economic system. Everything that is invested into producing all the goods and services, all the money that's spent on producing the system's total goods and services, all the price tags added up together, is the fees and wages and sales receipt of all those people who have provided the work and the materials and the entrepreneurs' profits and the bankers' interest rates and so forth. And so in order for the system to remain in balance, all the goods and all the services need to be sold at the prices asked, at the asking prices. So the price tag, no discounts, right? And because you have these two big drains out of the system, the savings and the debt repayment, all the goods and services can never be sold at the asking prices. Okay, so now somebody who studied economics is going to say like, oh no, wait a minute, there's investments, and like all the savings get recycled as investments. So they do constitute purchasing power in the system. So there's no drain on purchasing power. In theory, yes, but in practice, it doesn't work that way. And so what happens is that then all the producers, all the service providers, in order to sell all their goods and services, they have to lower the prices. So now if they lower the prices, maybe they're no longer profitable. So maybe now they have to start shutting down capacities, letting people go. And then in the next cycle, you have even less purchasing power in the system, because the monetary mass defines the purchasing power in the system. I won't complicate it with the velocity of money, but the less monetary mass, the less currency circulating in the system, the less purchasing power there is. And then, people who are selling goods and services, they have to lower the price. And then if they lower the price, maybe they're no longer profitable, maybe they're no longer capable of servicing their debts. And so now they have to rationalize, they have to let people go, they have to shut down some capacities. reduce production and so forth. And then in the next cycle, you have even less purchasing power in the system. So then they're going to have to shut down even more, and maybe whole industries are going to be disappearing. And so what you get is what is colloquially called the deflationary death spiral, because the whole system goes into this self-reinforcing loop, and it only stabilizes when it gets to the depression level of activity. And that means that it's basically producing the bare necessities, bread and milk, and the bare minimum that people need to get by.
Can I ask you here a question?
Yes, the lady in the last row, please go ahead.
That's me. I want to ask you, which I will ask you. I will not answer for you, because I have tendency to answer for the guest and then ask the guest. Do you think that's where the US is heading at this point?
Oh, any economy is heading in that direction, unless, and this is what I was getting to, in order to avoid the economic system going into a depression, the government has to step in, take on debts in order to bridge the deflationary gap. Okay, so let's pretend that when you add up all the price tags of all the goods and services that are being produced in an economy, you are at this level. And then you take out the savings, and then you take out the debt repayments, and you have this much purchasing power. And so the difference between the two is called the deflationary gap. It's a concept that they deliberately don't teach in economics courses. I promise you, I studied economics. I looked through all my textbook. It's never even mentioned. I mean, today you might find it on the internet, sometimes explained wrong, but the concept is there. And Carol Quigley, who wrote Tragedy and Hope, said that the deflationary gap was one of the three defining characteristics that have led to the tragedy of the two world wars during the 20th century. Why it's not taught in school is because if people understood this, they would say, oh, wait, we need a completely different monetary system. With this monetary system, 100% we have deflationary gap, 100% the governments have to step in. And it's not enough for the governments to step in by taxing and then spending. Because by taxing, you're simply taking purchasing power from here, you're transferring it over there, but you're not increasing the purchasing power. In order to actually increase the purchasing power in the system, the government has to borrow and do deficit spending. So if you look at any government's finances in the world, any government that has this monetary system, and I think we're talking about pretty much every country in the world, they're all in the deficits up to their eyeballs. And there's, you elect conservative governments because the candidates tell you, oh, small government, conservative, pay down the debts, close the deficits. And there's, this rhetoric, we've heard it for decades. It's not new. But they never can do it. And if you look at the deficits, they just go up and up and up and up. United States, Britain, Germany, Italy, you name it, every country. Because it's either deficit spending or depression. One or the other, it can't be both. Elon Musk, I think, and there's another problem with this, that the more government steps into the economic system as a participant, the more its role grows. And in many cases, particularly United States and Britain, it tends to favor the military-industrial complex. So the bulk of that spending goes to the the bulk of the deficit spending goes to the military-industrial complex and other large corporate systems. And what that does is that it just keeps, they become wealthier, they get more money from the government, they acquire political power, they influence the government to spend even more money. And so you get this spiral, which actually leads to fascism, because now you have these corporate mastodons, which are maybe uncompetitive, maybe they're zombies, maybe they cannot even service their debts, but nevertheless, they're being kept alive by government handouts. And so you get rise of fascism, totalitarianism. In the Soviet Union, we had the communist system. But anyway, with this money system, this is unavoidable. I think that Elon Musk may not be aware of this. Not very many people are aware of this problem. And he treats the United States as though it were a company. So if it were a company, cutting the deficits, reducing expenses, all of those measures, paying down the debt, all of those measures make perfect sense. But the United States is not a company because it issues, not the United States, the Federal Reserve, but it issues its own currency. And it is a whole economic system. And it has two major money drains, which systematically reduce the purchasing power in the system. And there's, you can't, theoretically, you could acquire purchasing power by increasing the wealth in the system. And in this case, bringing in Canada and Greenland and Panama, control over the Panama Canal, could actually do the trick of, let's say, bringing in new wealth and increasing the purchasing power through private investment. Creation of private credit for the development of resources in Greenland, for taking over Canadian resources and putting them into the dollar economy and so forth. That all can be done, but again, it has a limited half-life, so to speak. Because what you usually get is one business cycle of expanding credit, but from there on, again, the government has to be the one that steps in and keeps pumping the system with purchasing power, because the credit expansion inevitably puts a burden on the economy that the economy cannot withstand. And a really easy illustration of this is if you go to fred.org or fred. whatever, it's a Federal Reserve it's a Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, I think, that has this website with all the aggregates, all the time series, the GDP, the CPI inflation, PPI inflation, all of these statistics are in there, and among them you can find the monetary base. So this is the total money in circulation in an economy that's used for transacting, and you also have the total credit market debt. And if you plot these two curves together, you see that total credit market debt, which is total debt in the system, meaning government and private, has this progression of growth. And the monetary base has this progression of growth.
Alex, this is also on debt.org on the clock. When you see the debt, US debt.
Well, there you get the numbers. There you get total numbers, but you don't see the divergence. But I can tell you the number, the total credit market debt, and they changed the name of this series. But if you type it into the search engine at Fred, it will give you, it's something called all sectors, blah, 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 some incoherent sausage that I guess made sense to the people at the Federal Reserve. But it's basically known as total credit market debt in the system. It's currently at $113 trillion US. the monetary base is 5.6 trillion. The monetary base represents the money available for the repayment of the total credit market debt. This is the definition of unsustainable when you have $5.6 trillion in the system with which to pay off $113 trillion. And the two series are diverging like that. One is growing slowly, one is growing fast. At some point, it blows up, and it usually blows up with hyperinflation. And so I don't know if Elon Musk is aware of this. This is a very obscure thing, which took me, I used to be a hedge fund manager. I used to spend my days researching stuff like this. And it practically took me my lifetime to work this out. And it's very difficult to find. It's very difficult to find materials about this. And sadly, if you speak with a lot of these economists, and I speak with some of these economists, they haven't a clue. They have no idea. They're talking about paying down debts, reducing deficits, cutting costs, all of these things. And they don't understand that unless you change the monetary system, you're creating a recession or a depression. So again, we go back to what we discussed just moments ago. We need a new monetary system. There's no way around this. That's an absolutely essential thing. Otherwise, we're just going to keep going into these cycles of, colonialism, imperialism, forever wars, repression, Orwellian tyrannies, and so forth. And we'll always be closed in this dystopian loop with, like after the slate is cleaned, we're going to have like 2, 3, 4, 5 decades of maybe freedom, prosperity, and blah, blah, blah. And then it starts disintegrating again. But with a different monetary system, which is entirely possible, there's no reason why not, we could avoid that. We could have an economy that serves humanity, that serves our inner strivings and aspirations, and that could turn life on this earth from something beautiful, worthy of God's creation, rather than this dystopian Orwellian matrix that we're closed in today.
Thank you for that explanation so much. So when I'm thinking about what you just said, I think what they are doing now, they have to expose everyone they can expose. They have to expose the level of corruption. They have to drain the swamp as much as they can, which I think they absolutely will. They won't stop. And this is worldwide project. And this new monetary system is not just going to be United States. This will be worldwide, because as I was playing this short clip with Bernanke, all those central banks, Alex, right? They are located everywhere. This is all around the world. So we are talking humanity, complete change for the humanity. There, like you said, there is no point. Even if he's explaining this right now, maybe he doesn't get it, but maybe that's another, which I think, I know many people will be triggered, but well, it is what it is, c'est la vie. I say Trump knows what he's doing, and maybe that's the role for Musk, to be in this position to expose those people, and Musk probably doesn't even know what is Trump's plan in this, because he's not going to share it. And ultimately, that's the goal, don't you think? Maybe this is his role to go through those agencies and other places and expose that.
Yes, I do believe that, Anya. I do believe that, Anya. And I think that also maybe Elon Musk, that's his role. And maybe he's not completely, maybe he lacks clarity about these other issues. But on the other hand, maybe he does. And maybe other people in Trump administration do understand this, because, that could be one of the reasons for their serious intent to acquire Canada and Greenland, which would give the US economy a long new lease of life, even with the same monetary system now, even without changing the monetary system. And then, we've seen Trump issue his own private cryptocurrency,
and his wife too, by the way,
and his wife. And so, why did you do this? Well, some thinking went into this. Maybe it was just vulgar greed, nothing more than that. But I kind of doubt it, because that would be politically a very dumb thing to do. But on the other hand, it might stem from the awareness that the dollar is unsustainable, that something will have to replace it. And one of the ideas is this Friedmanite, from Milton Friedman, utopia of having a completely open free market of privately issued currencies. That's a possibility. Now with the cryptocurrencies, anybody can do it. Well, anybody. Many people will be able to do it, and maybe you'll have some Trump coins and some Musk coins and some Larry Johnson coins.
This is like
Alex Krainer coins.
Yeah.
But then also, a very, very important detail I wanted to add, and this almost went under the radar with all the stun grenades that Trump launches left and right, is that he this week he had Scott Bassent. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, his Treasury Secretary in the Oval Office, and they announced that they were going to monetize the U.S. government's assets. So the assets that they have in the Treasury, they're going to monetize them. Guess who did that? John F. Kennedy did that with the Executive Order 11110. He monetized the silver that was in U.S. Treasury and issued dollars that I think they're not in circulation anymore. But those
yes. I know what you're talking about.
Those dollar bills say U.S. Treasury note rather than Federal Reserve note, and they were backed by this silver, not the thin air nonsense from the. So there you have a possibility of an asset-backed currency that could enter into circulation, and then again you're creating new purchasing power that could extend the life of the U.S. economy on the existing foundations, and give yourself time to overhaul, to redesign, rethink, build back better. Yeah, that's what they can do. They can build
Alex,
back better.
You pretty much explained to everyone what's happening, and I appreciate it very much, because that's exactly what's happening. They're gonna change the monetary system, and they are doing every other, like they are in this circus, juggling all those balls with different countries, different names within the country, like within the circus, another arena, like all the arenas. It's crazy. It's 3 weeks. It's just been 3 weeks. But ultimately, it's crazy, right? Like today we were collecting, and I'm like, thank you so much, guys, for watching, because there is Kash Patel hearing. There is Robert Kennedy Jr. I don't know if he was already voted or not, but there is so much happening at the same time that you have to choose what is your focus. And I think I really appreciate that you explained so much today. I wonder when we connect next time, what's gonna be on the table. By the way, can I just say, I forgot to say about Putin-Trump talks. Yesterday, when Tulsi Gabbard was sworn in, after he had, that's another thing. He has all those journalists there nonstop. He's signing those executive orders and keep on answering questions. But he mentioned that they will be meeting with Putin in Saudi Arabia first, and then there will be 2 more meetings, as he said. So I don't know if Putin will be first coming to the US or it will be the other way around, Trump to Russia. But he actually mentioned 3 meetings, and the first one is in Saudi Arabia. That's what he said. So I just wanted to add that. I forgot to say that. But Alex, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate all your knowledge that you share with us and explaining the financial situation with this, because it has to be changed. Otherwise, there will be no change if the monetary system remains as it is.
Correct. Yes.
So that's it for today, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't hate Trump. Just wait a little and you will see what's happening, because I know there is a lot of people on this train right now that they watch other experts, with all the respect to everyone. But I think it's sometimes very unfortunate that we are so quick to judge everything, and as if we ourselves are perfect and we always act accordingly to the higher power as we're supposed to. It's not always the case. So maybe let's just wait and see what's happening before we make any assumptions, because we see how this looks in a month from now, and at the end of the year it will be different reality, and then in 4 years from now what's going to be the case. That's all I have for you today, everyone. Thank you, Alex, for joining me.
Thank you, Anya, for having me, and until the next time.
Bye, guys.